Now in this latest video looking at standard form, we'll be focusing on multiplying and dividing numbers in standard form. Now in the description below there will be a worksheet and a set of notes for you to use while watching this video. Now before we get started, let's just have a quick refresh of what is actually numbers in standard form. Now again, standard form is used to represent extremely large numbers or extremely small numbers, but they can be used to represent numbers of any sort of magnitude. Now the format of standard form is really important before we actually get on to performing any calculations involving standard form. Now if this was a calculator question, it's not a problem because I can use the calculator function that's got a standard form button and it'll give me the answer, and I won't have to do any worry about what the format's going to be. I can just simply copy off the calculator and boom, I'm done. However, when it's non-calculator, I do need to take that extra little effort to make sure that my final answers are always in standard form. Now numbers in standard form have two main principles. There's always going to be a number at the front, and that number, which you can see, is number A, or letter A I should say in this case, but that A represents a number that's between 1 and 10. It can't be 10, it has to be a number between 1 and 9.9 recurring, but generally when you're describing it, it's usually a number between 1 and 10, but it just can't be 10. And the next thing is the power. So you always multiply by 10, that's never going to come into question. It's never times 8 or times 5, always times 10. Now the power can only be a whole number. It can't be a fraction, it can't be a decimal, it can only be a whole number. However, it can be positive or it can be negative. Now if the power is negative, then that's usually going to represent a small number, so basically a number that's between 0 and 1. So let me just make a quick note of that. So a small number is basically a number between 0 to 1. And a positive, when the power is positive, then that's going to be a number that's basically bigger than 1. And that's what that's going to go all the way up to infinity. So they're the two main key principles, that the first number's got to be between 1 and 9.9 recurring, and the power has to be a whole number. It can be positive, it can be negative, and again it's entirely up to you in terms of the question of what that's going to be. So let's go straight into multiplying. So let me just scroll down. Now the method of multiplying can be followed by doing these 4 stages. Now it's not set in stone, these 4 stages, but I would say it's usually something to abide by. Now typically the question you're going to have is going to look like this. Now although if we look at any question that's being multiplied, so for example if we look at question 1 where it says 3 times 10 to the power 5 times 2 times 10 to the power 8, the important thing you've got to recognize is there's only 2 numbers in this particular question. Now you might think to yourself, hang on a second, no, there's 4 numbers being multiplied, but no, in fact there's actually 2 numbers being multiplied, and that is why it's been represented in brackets. Now the brackets are there just to tell you that the numbers are written in standard form. That is it. So that's why you'll find a lot of these questions related to standard form tend to be written in brackets, just to emphasize that they are in standard form, nothing else. No bid mass or anything like that is involved. It's just a case of recognizing those numbers are in standard form. So this represents one number and this represents another number. So here I've just got 2 numbers being multiplied together. Now there is a quick way of doing this, and that is by following these 4 steps. Now if you can relate it, now in terms of, I've used a bit of algebra in this, but A is basically the number that I'm multiplying by 10, and M and N are the powers I'm working with, not a famous rapper. So it is important that you establish the components of this particular question. Now when we're working this out, so if I just follow step 1, so all I'm going to do is just put #1. So I'm going to do 3 times 2, which is 6, and then step 2 then says to add together the powers. So I'm then going to do 10, and it's going to be 5 plus 8, which gives me 10 to the power of 13. And then that's step 2. And then step 3 is all I need to do is join step 1 and step 2 together. So it's going to be 6 times 10 to the power of 13. Now the next thing I then need to do is check to make sure this is in standard form. So I check, is this a number between 1 and 10? Yes, it is. And is this a whole number? Yes, it is. So therefore my final answer equals 6 times 10 to the power of 13. Now I don't need to convert it into ordinary form. I leave it as it is. 99% of the time you're always leaving your answer in standard form. If they did ask you to write it in ordinary form, they would quote it in the question, and you probably get a few marks for it, extra marks I should say, but other than that just leave it in standard form. So let's have a look at question 2. So again, I'm going to follow those 4 steps. So step 1 is I'm going to do 2.1 times 4, which is going to be 8.4. Step 2, I've just realized I've changed color, which is going to be 10 to the power of 5 plus minus 8. Now here I need to be careful with negative numbers. So when the signs are different, that basically means they are taken away. So that's going to give me an answer of 5 take away 8, which is minus 3. And then the third step is going to be combining the two things together. So I've got 8.4 times 10 to the power of minus 3. And then step 4 is just checking to make sure it's in standard form. So is this a number between 1 and 10? Yes, it is. And is this a whole number? Yes, it is. So my final answer is going to be 8.4 times 10 to the power of minus 3. And there is my final answer. They don't have to write final answer. This is just purpose for this tutorial. So let's have a look at another question here. So again, I'm going to follow the 4 steps. So step 1 is I'm going to do 5.2 times 3, which is going to give me 15.6. And then I'm going to do step 2, which is 10 plus 12. Now again, when you're multiplying, you always add the powers. So that's going to give me 10 to the power of 22. And then the third step is I join them together. So I've got 15.6 times 10 to the power of 22. Now the fourth step is, do I check to make sure this is in standard form? Now this is not a number it's not a number between 1 and 10. So what I need to do is I need to change, or I need to make this number smaller. Now the general rule is if you make A smaller, you need to make the power bigger. And or if you need to make A bigger, then you need to make the power smaller. And apologies for my handwriting, but that's an important step. So here I need to make this number smaller, so I'm going to make it as a number between 1 and 10. So that's going to be 1.56 times 10. Now because I've moved the decimal point 1 place, I've divided it by 10. I need to add this power. I need to add 1 to this because I've moved the decimal point 1 place. So I add 1 to the power, giving me my final answer, which is 1.56 times 10 to the power of 23. So then let's look at question 4. So again, with this, I'm going to do 8.1 times 2.5. Now, if I'm not too sure about how to do this, or a question was challenging me to do this, then all I've got to do is just remember how I multiply with decimals. I've got to do 81 times 25. And again, let's just do this way. So I've got 5 times 1, which is 5, 40, add a 0, 2, 16, so 5, 2, 10, 2, so it's 2 equals 20, 25. And let's just get rid of this. Just to show I'm not cheating using a calculator. Now, in terms of looking at this answer, well, that's roughly 8, that's roughly 2. So I'm looking for an answer that's close to 16. So I've got to put my decimal point somewhere where this becomes a number close to 16. So it's going to be 20.25. And then step 2 is then 10 to minus 46 plus 60. And so minus 46 plus 60 is going to give me positive 14. And then step 3 is then 20.25 times 10 to the power of 14. Now again, this is not a number that's between 1 and 10, so I need to move the decimal point 1 place to make that number smaller. Now note that I'm still using all the digits, not knocking off the 5. So I need to add 1 to the power, so it becomes 10 to the power of 15, and there is my final answer. And then if we look at question 5, now for this purpose, what I'm going to do is Let's see if we can, yeah, well, let's just carry on with this question actually. So here we've got step 1. So I've got 3.6 times 5, and again 36 times 5 is going to give me 30, 18. So I've got 180, so that's going to be 18. And then step 2 is I've got 10 to the power of minus 16 plus minus 19. And again, minus 16 plus minus 19. Oh, a little bit weird there. A plus and a minus become a minus, so it's minus 16 minus 19, which is going to give me minus 35. So it's 10 to the power of minus 35. Then step 3 is adding the two things together. So I've got 18 times 10 to the power of minus 35. Now for this, I need to make this smaller. So that's going to be 1.8. And then I need to add 1 to minus 35. Now just be careful when you're adding on to negative numbers. That's going to be minus 34. And there is your final answer. Now it's unlikely you'll get the following situation, but let's say I had 0.5 times 10 to the power of 6. Now here what I need to do is I need to make this number here move the decimal point to make it bigger, so that would be 5. And so therefore, because I've moved it one place, I need to make the power smaller by 1, so then that's then going to be 5, and there would be my final answer. So if I did have something that looked like this, then that is what I'd have to do. So whatever you do to the first number, you need to do the opposite with the power. So if you make the base number smaller, make the power bigger. If you make the base number bigger, you make the power smaller. And that's the general rule of what we're looking at here. So let's now move on to dividing numbers in standard form. Now, when you are dividing in standard form, your question could be written in one of two ways. Now, it could either be written using the division symbol, or it could be written as a fraction. And the key thing to note is that these two things here are exactly the same. Now, there is a bit of a twist with regards to dealing with this, and it kind of combines indices and dividing as we did with multiplying with standard form. So if I just show you in terms of this question, so step 1, so this is my A and my B values. So step 1 is I'm going to do 8 over 2. Now, before I even start that, what I would strongly recommend is that if you do have a question, use the division symbol, actually write it as a fraction. Like so. And it might make the next following steps a little bit easy. So the next thing we then got to do is split it up into two fractions. Like so. And then from this, what we then got to do is work this out. So 8 divided by 2 is 4 times 10. Now, when we are dividing, we take away the powers. So here, what I need to do is 14 minus 10. Now, just be careful. It's always the top number minus the bottom number. So then that's going to give me an answer of 4. And then is this in standard form? Well, is this number between 1 and 10? Yes. Is this power a whole number? Yes. So my final answer equals 4 times 10 to the power of 4. And there we go. So let's have a look at question 2. So question 2, again, I'm going to rewrite this as a fraction. And then I'm going to split it up into two fractions where I've got the two base numbers being divided and then the powers of 10 being divided. So again, looking at this, 5 divided by 2 is 2.5 times 10. And then I've got to take away the powers. Now remember, it's the top number minus the second number, or the next second power, I should say. Now here we've got a minus and a minus. And a minus and a minus become a plus. So that's 12 plus 18, which equals 30. So there, that power is going to be 30. And then just double check, is this a number between 1 and 10? Yes. Is this a whole number? Yes. So your final answer is 2.5 times 10 to the power of 30. And there it is. Looking at number 3. So again here we've got, so I'm going to write as a fraction, so 9.9 times 10 to the power of 22 over 3 times 10 to the power of minus 8. And that equals 9.9 divided by 3 times 10 to the power of 22 over 10 to the power of minus 8. Now, if you want to go straight into like not write this, you can do. If you want to go straight into from this to this, then that's absolutely fine. So the next thing we've got to do is do 9.9 divided by 3, which is 3.3, times 10. And I've got to do 22 minus 8. So again, two minuses become a plus. So it's 22 plus 8. So again, I end up with a power of 30. And is this in standard form? Well, is that a number between 1 and 10? Yes. Is that a whole number? Yes. So my final answer, 3.3 times 10 to the power of 30. And then moving on to question 4 with the division symbol is gone a bit wayward. So let's just squeeze it in there. So here we've already got our fraction written. So I can go straight into splitting it all up. Don't know why that's gone. There we go. And then so here what we've got is 1 over 4 times 10 to the power 14 over 10 to the power 56. So 1 over 4 is 0.25 times 10, and I've got 14 minus 56. Now 14 minus 56, again working that out, is going to give me minus 42. Now again, what I need to do is check to make sure that is in standard form. So is this a number between 1 and 10? No, it is not. So what I need to do is I need to move the decimal point to make that number bigger. So that's 2.5. So if I made that number bigger by 1, I need to make this smaller by 1. So if I've moved it one place to make it bigger, I need to take away 1 from the power. And 4 minus 42, take away 1 is minus 43. And there is my final answer. Now, this technically is not wrong. It is the correct answer, but it's not in correct standard form. So that's why if I did write this line here, I would lose a mark, but this is the correct answer, and that would get me 4 marks. Let me just highlight what I'm talking about in case you have no idea, but there you go. So let's have a look at question 5. So again, here I'm going to have 2.2 over 8 times 10 to the power of minus 5 over 10 to the power of minus 8. So again, 2.2 divided by 8. Now again, if you're not too sure, we can just go and treat it like this. So here I've got 8 goes into 2, none. So I carry the 2. How many 8s go into 22? Well, that's going to be 2, remainder 6. Yep, 6. How many 8s go into 60? That's going to be 7, remainder 4. And then how many 8s go into 40? That's going to be 5. So it's 0.275. So it's 0.275 times 10. And I've got minus 5 minus 8. And again, you're always subtracting when you are dividing with the powers. I don't know why I've gone for pink and orange because it's too similar. So again, 2 minuses become a plus. So it's minus 5 plus 8, which is 3. And then now here, again, I need to make this number bigger by 1. So I need to, then it becomes 2.75 times 10. Then I add 1 to the power to make it 4. And there is my final answer. And again, we've got to make sure that this number is not in correct standard form, because this number is not a number between 1 and 10. So that there would be my final answer. Now, there will be some practice questions in the description below along with their answers for you to check everything you've learnt, and I'll also put a set of notes in there for you to copy for your exercise book or your revision notes.